It can put it to sleep, so maybe if Venusaur itself isn't knocking it out, it and its ally can knock it out. Leech Seed can slowly drain its HP and then heal back, and you resist Fairy moves, so Venusaur can certainly keep up with the likes of Xerneas.
Right, and then of course, you know, Mewtwo is pretty cool because it actually has access to Psy Strike, which is going to go ahead and hit on the physical spectrum, so even if Xerneas gets this Geomancy boost, Psy Strike's going to go ahead and bypass that as well.
Yeah, so Psy Strike, a new move from Mewtwo, really cool because, like you said, before it was only Psy Shock that would benefit from the opponent having a low defense stat. Now we've got something like Psy Strike, which is much more powerful.
Yeah, and that's one great move about Mewtwo. Unfortunately, I don't think its damage output is that great in terms of how much damage you really expect. And we do see Mewtwo and Talonflame come out for Gary. There it is, the Mewtwo on the screen versus Salamence and Xerneas.
Yeah, really offensive lead coming out from Gary. Talonflame and Mewtwo, not really known for their defensive capabilities, more known for the kind of offensive coverage and the damage output that they can bring. Both very fast Pokemon, although Talonflame also can be useful inside of Trick Room because of its ability Gale Wings, letting it use Brave Bird at an increased priority.
Yeah, and right now Mewtwo and Talonflame probably looking to stop this Xerneas from being able to set up a Geomancy. Of course, Talonflame has options such as Tailwind, but also Salamence can also set up its own Tailwind as well.
Yeah, it can, but at the same time, Talonflame, again, doesn't really mind if Salamence sets up a Tailwind because of Brave Bird. It'll be able to hit Xerneas really hard on the physical side, and it doesn't really matter what kind of speed Aaron has, if he gets Tailwind up or not. And Mewtwo, of course, threatens a Psy Strike on that Xerneas, but also an Ice Beam on that Salamence if he's carrying the Ice Beam.
And we do see Salamence switch out, going to go into Bronzong right here, maybe expecting to set up a Trick Room mode instead. Mewtwo going for the Ice Beam right now, going to go ahead and target down that Salamence slot, going to hit that Bronzong instead, not very effective damage. And we do see the Life Orb. Aaron now sees the Life Orb as Talonflame goes for a taunt. Gonna go and hit that Xerneas, gonna prevent it from being able to set up a Geomancy. And Xerneas goes straight for the Moonblast here. Not gonna try to set up the Geomancy, and Mewtwo takes a huge Moonblast, but hangs on with a special attack drop.
It's really good for Aaron getting into Bronzong and then getting a lot of damage off on Mewtwo, not falling for that Geomancy. You could tell, since he brought out Bronzong, he's likely planning on setting up Trick Room, so no need to go for a Geomancy. Just get that damage on Mewtwo, so that way when you get up Trick Room, you just sweep with your Groudon. So I really like that play from Aaron.
Right, and Gary definitely probably saw a Tailwind or something coming up from Salamence, and also the Geomancy to set up as well.
Yeah, the only thing from Gary, I know this is one thing that we saw a lot in 2010, a long time ago, a lot of substitute Mewtwo, since Mewtwo has such good move coverage, it can really take advantage of forcing Pokemon to switch or protect, so I would have loved to see a substitute. I don't know if Gary is using it or not, but something like a substitute really could have taken advantage there. The only thing is, you're staring down a Xerneas, you don't really want to substitute because it just gives Xerneas a free turn.
And we do see Mewtwo withdraw here, not too happy about what he sees, as we do see Venusaur go ahead and switch in. Bronzong now gonna go ahead and switch out, not gonna want to stay in, gonna go straight back into Salamence. So a good read right there from Aaron Trailer to predict that Venusaur coming back in. Another Intimidate comes off onto that Talonflame. It's not gonna be hitting that hard at all. So great switch right there from Aaron Trailer again. And we do see a taunt, not gonna work, as we do see another Dazzling Gleam. Probably predicted a switch right there from the Xerneas to try to get another taunt off.
Yeah, and I don't mind that because if you set up the Geomancy there, you're not really in a great position against Talonflame and Venusaur, so it's perfectly okay going for the attack there, trying to finish off the Mewtwo, because now is a prime position to really switch Xerneas out since it's not really in a good matchup here. So it's better to save that Geomancy and that Power Herb for later.
And here it is, the Xerneas is now going to switch out, going to go straight into Bronzong. Bronzong's going to be able to wall what Venusaur and this Talonflame can throw at it in terms of attacks. Salamence does Mega Evolve here, and let's see what Salamence chooses to do after it does go for the Mega Evolution, as Venusaur also follows suit and activates its Mega. And we'll have to see how this plays out, but Venusaur not in a favorable matchup at all.
No, not against the Salamence.
And Talonflame now goes for the Brave Bird right here, gonna go ahead. I believe it's gonna target down the Bronzong here. Yes, it is gonna hit the Bronzong for not very effective damage, especially after those two Intimidates. We see the recoil, and we also see Salamence now able to set up a Tailwind.
Interesting to go for the Tailwind there. I imagine Aaron has to be thinking more about the Mewtwo in the back.
Oh, a Sleep Powder from Venusaur connects onto the Salamence here and puts Salamence to sleep in the face of danger, going for that Sleep Powder anyways.
Yeah, very interesting Tailwind from Aaron because Talonflame, like mentioned previously, Brave Bird has increased priority thanks to Gale Wings. So a Tailwind doesn't really help against a Talonflame. Venusaur not really that fast. and Bronzong way too slow to take advantage of a Tailwind. So curious, he has to be thinking about this Mewtwo in the back, maybe trying to get Tailwind up for it, but don't know if that was better than maybe just straight up attacking.
And we see the Groudon switch in now. Instead of the Talonflame, gonna reset its attack stat as we see Groudon go ahead and Primal Revert. A good thing to note is that, you know, Bronzong can't really hit that Venusaur, but at the same time, Venusaur can't also attack that Bronzong for massive damage. It can sit there and stall, but not much damage output is going to be done by either Pokemon.
Yeah, Bronzong could always go for Hypnosis, though.
That would be pretty
not
big.
Super accurate, but he could do it.
We've seen a lot of things today.
Right, there's not much better it can do.
And we see the Sludge Bomb from Venusaur connect onto that Salamence. Bronzong now going for the Hypnosis. Gonna go ahead and target down that Groudon. He connects on it and puts Groudon to sleep. Huge Hypnosis right there from that Bronzong from Aaron Trailer's side. It has hit all the Hypnosis that I've seen it need to hit.
We've had Aaron on stream twice, and he certainly had good fortune with hitting Hypnosis, and it doesn't stop here.
Yeah, and tough spot right now for Aaron, or for Gary actually. The Groudon's asleep. Talonflame's probably the hardest hitter right now, especially after since that Mewtwo's been damaged so heavily.
Yeah, there's no switching to Salamence if it does wake up, so Aaron, I'm sure, really hoping that Salamence wakes up this turn. It would be a very short sleep, but hey, we've seen crazier things happen.
Right, and Groudon now gonna switch out. Hasn't used up a turn of sleep at all so far. We're gonna have to see how that plays out for him later on, as we see Talonflame now come in with its attack stat reset. Bronzong now gonna go ahead and switch out as well. Venusaur will probably not be able to pick up the KO on that Salamence with the Sludge Bomb, but we'll have to see how the rolls go as Groudon for Aaron comes in as well.
But even if it doesn't, Talonflame can finish it off with a Brave Bird.
The key thing, though, is that Salamence stays asleep.
Right, that is very important.
And we see Groudon go ahead and revert back to its primal form here, bringing out the harsh sunlight. And Salamence stays asleep, so this is a chance for Gary to open up right here, as Venusaur does go for a Leech Seed instead. Gonna go ahead and try to have some more staying power on the field, connecting onto that Groudon, and we do see it heal back some health residually.
Yeah, I'm fine with that because Salamence does look like it's in KO range from a Brave Bird. It does have really high defense, so there is a chance maybe it survives. I don't know how Talonflame was trained or what item it has, but I assume Gary is thinking that a Brave Bird from Talonflame will knock it out, so he doesn't have to spend Venusaur's turn attacking the Salamence there with another Sludge Bomb. Instead goes for the Leech Seed on Groudon, put a timer on it, make it switch out, otherwise Venusaur's just going to stall and keep healing back.
Right, and the Tailwind is still up. I believe there's one more or 2 turns left of Tailwind, so I also want to try to figure out how many more turns it is to stall it out.
Yeah, I think one more turn of Tailwind. I don't know if it's that big of a deal right now, considering the field, since Talonflame has Gale Wing. Salamence would be knocked out by the Brave Bird, I imagine.
And we do see Talonflame go for the Brave Bird here. Is it going to be enough to pick up the KO on Salamence? Down goes its hit points. It hangs on with 7 hit points. Huge survival as Salamence wakes up and goes for a Hyper Voice here. That should be enough to pick up the KO on Talonflame. And Venusaur hangs on, but now Groudon gets to make a move. A Fire Punch should probably be enough to pick up the KO. Groudon goes for a Swords Dance instead here. Huge Swords Dance, getting ready to go to town.
Yeah, great fortune for Aaron there. Talonflame, it must not have been trained enough in attack to be able to take out that Salamence. Maybe its item was a little lackluster. We didn't see any recoil, so we know it doesn't have Life Orb. But based on that damage, it doesn't have Choice Band or anything either. Well, we know it doesn't have Choice Band since it has Taunt, although there have been occasional Taunt Choice Band Talonflames. But it must have some kind of item that boosts its offensive presence. Just it wasn't enough. It wasn't a Life Orb where it would really knock out Salamence.
And we do see Mewtwo come back in after the Venusaur goes for a Grass Knot. It is going to go ahead and show the Unnerve to prevent berries from being eaten. And, you know, Mewtwo does outspeed Salamence, I believe.
Yep, Mewtwo will outspeed Salamence if it is trained that way. But you never know for sure. It should be. Most Mewtwo's are.
You want to go as fast as you can.
Exactly, especially with how common Salamence is, and Mewtwo has Ice Beam, so I'm sure Gary's trained it to outspeed Salamence.
Right, but then the key right now is to have this Venusaur be able to pick up the KO on this Groudon too, because, you know, Precipice Blades from this Groudon is all it needs, so a tough call right here. As Mewtwo goes for the Side Strike, gonna go ahead and target down the Salamence here. Not gonna reveal its other move. Does get the KO on Salamence, but now is Groudon going to be able to connect on this Precipice Blades to be able to pick up the double KO. Mewtwo's Life Orb does some more recoil damage as Groudon goes for a Precipice Blades, and it does connect. Huge hit right here, and it does connect on both Pokemon. Mewtwo and Venusaur get knocked out, so one more Pokemon back for Gary versus Bronzong, Groudon, and I believe one more.
Yeah, this isn't looking good for Gary. His Pokemon just not strong enough defensively, especially not against a Groudon that has a Swords Dance. Aaron's in complete control. This is kind of the risk that you run, running a bunch of frail Pokemon like Mewtwo, Raichu, Talonflame. He does have Venusaur, which we saw could have won the game if that Salamence fainted from that Talonflame Brave Bird, but it didn't.
Yeah, and that should do it because Groudon is fast asleep, hasn't taken one turn of sleep yet, and Groudon on Aaron's side is set up with that Swords Dance already, so it looks like this game should be able to be taken on this turn as Groudon goes for another Precipice Blades. At 2 stages of increased attack, that is definitely it. That picks up the KO on Groudon easily, and game 1 goes to Aaron Trailer. Gary Chan has to go back to the drawing board and try to figure out how he can adjust to try to steal away game 2 from Aaron.
Yeah, and that's another downside of Venusaur, because you don't really do much offensively against Groudon. So Aaron's Groudon actually is Swords Dance, so it can freely take the time to set up. Venusaur can't really punish that hard. Leech Seed slowly chips away. Like it can use a grass move, but that won't really deal a ton of damage to really deter Groudon.
We saw the grass and it didn't do much damage at all.
Right, it won't really deter Groudon from setting up a Swords Dance. And then you can just go to town on Venusaur with that +2 stages of attack after the Swords Dance.
So yeah.
So even without Salamence, I think Aaron still has a chance to win against a Venusaur.
So do you think what Gary's best option is switch to the Mega Salamence mode?
I don't know. If he's got Draco Meteor on his Salamence, it would certainly be very useful in taking care of Aaron's Salamence. I'm not sure if it does or not, but at the same time, Mewtwo, it certainly puts in work against Salamence. Maybe a little bit better prediction-wise, since first turn, last game, Aaron switched in that Bronzong to take that Ice Beam that was originally targeted at his Salamence. Aaron just seemed one step ahead when it came to switching. Maybe I'd like to see Gary kind of anticipate that a little more. Pokemon choice-wise, I think he did fine. Again, if Salamence stayed asleep longer, Gary still might have won that match. So I think Gary can keep doing what he has been doing. It's just maybe predict a little bit better.
Okay. Gotcha, Ray. And, you know, the Salamence sleeping for another turn would have been huge, you're right. As both players now are ready to go underway here, sending out their Pokemon. It looks like Gary is going to go ahead and send out Talonflame and Mewtwo, the exact same leads. Maybe some adjustments are made in the back, or he's just going to have to adjust on the fly depending on what Aaron sends out. As we do see Salamence and Xerneas come out for Aaron's side here. So, again, similar leads.
Yep, I wouldn't mind to see Gary try and predict a Bronzong switch-in, though. Since we already saw it happen game 1, maybe Aaron is thinking, well, there's no way Gary lets me switch in Bronzong for free again. So maybe he does let his Salamence get targeted by an Ice Beam or something. But even so, if you do try and predict that, there's not much risk to that, I don't think. So maybe if he, something like a substitute, if he has it, that would be a great time because you're faster. So even if Salamence or Xerneas does decide to attack Mewtwo, the substitute will just block it. So there's no risk there trying to set up a substitute, but there's so much reward if you pull it off.
And Salamence does stay in, not going to switch out to the Bronzong here. Going to go ahead and Mega Evolve as we do see Salamence protect itself here. And what is Gary up to right now? Mewtwo is probably going to... Oh, Talonflame moves first, right. That goes for the Brave Bird. Going to go ahead and target down that Xerneas on the physical spectrum. Going to be a decent Brave Bird, but thanks to the Intimidate, does barely any damage at all.
Yeah, that was really weak.
And Mewtwo does go for the Ice Beam into the Salamence Protect, as we do see Xerneas go for a Geomancy now. Huge, huge Geomancy, as now Xerneas is set up.
Oh, this is not looking good for Gary at all, because Xerneas it's got the special defense now, so that'll really help him later in the game. Not against his Mewtwo because of the Side Strike, but against some of the other Pokemon, Venusaur in particular, it'll certainly help against. And we saw how little damage that Talonflame did to Xerneas. Xerneas simply doesn't care if Talonflame just Brave Birds it before it attacks. And Talonflame, very frail. It could easily be knocked out by Xerneas despite resisting Fairy.
Yeah, and, I think right there, that turn, Gary's probably looking back and thinking, Taunt and Ice Beam, the plays that I made the first game, probably the best idea.
Yeah, definitely at least Taunt.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But I would have loved to see, some kind of prediction, because there's no way Salamence stays in and lets itself get Ice Beamed. Well, there is a chance, but it's pretty low, so maybe do something to take advantage of that next time.
Talonflame now going for the Tailwind here as Xerneas goes for a Moonblast, going to connect onto the Mewtwo here. How much damage is this going to do? Mewtwo does not hang on, going to go ahead and get knocked out by 2 stages of increased special attack. Moonblast, and Salamence goes for his own Tailwind, and now the Tailwinds are matched. Aaron has 1 extra turn of Tailwind, so he's sort of in the advantageous position right now.
Yeah, that Tailwind pretty much neutralizing each other, so Aaron's still in a phenomenal position with the Xerneas. Salamence has a very favorable matchup against Groudon, so even though Groudon's physical can deal with Xerneas pretty well, Salamence just, he'll take care of Groudon. He doesn't really mind it, and we saw how little damage that Brave Bird did to Xerneas. It'll do even less to Salamence because it has a much higher physical defense.
Yeah, and you know, it's always unfortunate to see you lose one of your restricted Pokemon so easily.
Yeah.
It's just devastating because you only have 2 of them.
Yeah, that's kind of the risk you run by using frail Pokemon like Mewtwo and Talonflame. Using bulkier restricted Pokemon like Xerneas, Kyogre, Rayquaza, Groudon is certainly a lot more consistent than using Mewtwo, but if you predict well, Mewtwo is phenomenal simply because of the kinds of moves that it learns and by how fast it is.
Absolutely. We do see Xerneas protect itself here, probably going to try to get some chip damage onto this Groudon with the Salamence, but Groudon instead protects as well. So we'll see what this Talonflame does. Goes for a Brave Bird into the Xerneas' protect as Salamence goes for a double edge into the Talonflame here. Gonna be doing massive amounts of damage and picks up the KO. Huge knockout right there from the Salamence onto that Talonflame.
Yeah, great turn for Aaron, getting a free KO on that Talonflame. He's already in a great spot, but now he's in an even greater spot. And a Venusaur, which Salamence can easily take care of, and Salamence doesn't mind Groudon. Xerneas is boosted. This game is, you know, it's well in Aaron's hand. I don't see a way that he can lose this.
4-2 in advantage of Aaron. Mewtwo's already been knocked out. We do have Groudon on the field, but the problem is that Xerneas is set up with the Geomancy. Venusaur, of course, heavily threatened by that Salamence.
Yeah, and Sludge Bomb won't even do that much damage to Xerneas simply because it already has the Geomancy.
Yeah, and we do see Venusaur now go ahead and Mega Evolve. It does get a full Chlorophyll boost for this turn. I believe it's still under 1 turn of Tailwind.
It's got to go for a Sleep Powder to try and do something.
And we do see the Dazzling Gleam right now from the Xerneas. Going to connect onto the Groudon, doing about 50%. Venusaur hangs on. A critical hit as Venusaur does go for a Sleep Powder here. Targets down the Salamence. Going to put it to sleep right now as Groudon does get to move for this turn. And it is going to go for, well, Salamence is of course going to take its first turn of sleep. And Groudon now moving for the Fire Punch. Going to hit that Xerneas now. Going to do a decent amount of damage in the sunlight, but does not get any burn to kind of put a counter on that Xerneas.
Yeah, not enough. A Moonblast would take out Groudon from this point. Even then, a simple Protect from Xerneas, that's also an option to just stall out the sleep turns of Salamence, since you know Gary's likely going to be targeting the Xerneas since Salamence is asleep. But even if Xerneas does go for a Moonblast on Groudon and the Groudon goes for a Protect, Sludge Bomb should knock out Xerneas from this range, but I don't know for sure. It might even hang on.
Yeah, and we do see Xerneas Protect just going to try to have the Salamence wakes up and uses Double Edge right here. Another 1-turn sleep for the Salamence. Picks up the KO on Venusaur, and Gary extends the hand right there because now it's going to be Groudon versus, Salamence, Xerneas, and one more Pokemon in the back as Groudon goes for a Fire Punch. Hits the Salamence here, going to target it down in the sunlight. Is not enough to pick up the KO, and the Tailwind on, well, both Tailwinds kind of peter out right there, and, huge Double Edge right there.
Yep, there was a clutch wake-up, but even if Salamence didn't wake up, Aaron was still in a commanding position. He still got all 4 of his Pokemon remaining. But Aaron, with his more standard Groudon, Xerneas, Trick Room team, he's done well every single time he's been on stream. Continued to do well this match. He didn't really have any opposition this match. He was in almost complete control the entire series. So really well played by Aaron.
Yeah, and you got to give props to both these players. Gary, with a very exciting team in Mewtwo, Venusaur, Raichu, unfortunately just cannot overcome the power of Aaron Trailer and his Primal Groudon, Xerneas core.
Yeah, when you're using such frail Pokemon like Mewtwo, Talonflame, Raichu, you have to be able to predict well almost every turn, or else the team just can't hang with the bulkier teams, the slower Trick Room teams. And Aaron certainly showed us why that's the case, because his Pokemon were just not taking enough damage with the support from like Intimidate or just the defensive stats that his Pokemon had naturally. Whereas we saw how easily Gary's Pokemon were all knocked out. So.
And not even that, but the leads were actually not that bad. They were actually they were pretty evenly matched in my opinion.
Right, Gary actually had the advantage both games from a leading perspective. I just would have loved to see him kind of capitalize on that more. It's just Aaron's team had better resistances. He switched around it better, predicted better. Gary certainly had opportunities. I really think a substitute would have been nice to see on the Mewtwo. There was almost no risk to it, but it certainly would have paid off really big for him if he did go for it. But when you're playing against a player of Aaron's caliber, who has Xerneas as his lead. I don't know if you want to substitute. It is risky giving Xerneas a free turn, but since you've got Talonflame out there, you've got Groudon and Venusaur in the back, I think you certainly had the opportunity to set up a substitute. I think that might have been the best play for him.
How exciting is that? You know, I mean, to be able to make top 12 in the national championships of a huge, huge tournament, right? That's amazing for both players. And Aaron actually moves on to the top 8.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, so excited for, you know, I'm pretty sure that puts Gary in a contention for day 2 possibly. And Aaron, you know, going to such a great tournament. We actually have the side match for you guys ready to go between Jake Skurchak and Grant Weldon. They're actually entering game 3 right now of the top 12. They're the other side of the match, of the bracket, with Gary and Aaron. The winner of this is going to go ahead and move on to play
Stefan
Smigmach. And, you know, we're ready to go underway here. The teams for both players, Jake carrying Kangaskhan, Kyogre, Bronzong, Salamence, Thundurus, and Groudon. Grant going to be carrying Bronzong, Groudon, Kyogre, Thundurus, Salamence, and Kangaskhan. So both players are ready to go here in Game 3. We saw Jake and Grant on stream previously, as we do see Salamence and Kyogre out for Grant's side, and Salamence and Thundurus out for Jake's side.
So it looks like we've got 2 dual primal teams going against each other with a Bronzong in Game 3. Certainly a skill-intensive matchup, especially in a mirror match, so this should be really, really fun to watch. And 2 Salamences out against each other. Draco Meteor is one of those moves that really puts you in an advantage if your Salamence has that and the other doesn't. So that is something we should be looking for to turn the tides of this match.
Right, and you know, Thundurus out on the field can provide a lot of support with that Prankster Thunder Wave.
Yeah, definitely, especially since Salamence is so fast. Even paralyzing a Kyogre, it's a dual primal team, so you do want that speed advantage. So getting a paralysis on Kyogre is certainly beneficial for the rest of your team.
Even then, just knowing which Kyogre is going to be faster is also very advantageous.
Yeah, that
as well.
too. Another thing in these matchups is if the Kyogre has Thunder or not, because 2 Kyogres facing off against each other, they don't do a whole lot of damage to each other. So something like Thunder really turns the tide of this dual primal matchup.
A lot of players don't even expect Thunder these days. You know, a lot of players opt for 2 water-type attacks and Ice Beam.
Yeah, Thunder isn't even all that common, but it's just so beneficial when you're going up against other Kyogres, since that's really all it's good for.
And we see Jake switch out the Salamence, going to go into Groudon here. Going to go ahead and revert back to its primal form, bring out the Harsh Sunlight, kind of try to play and control the weather that he wants. Thundurus now in a bit more of a favorable position because of the fact that it can actually hit this Kyogre, maybe only get threatened by an Ice Beam instead of a very powerful Water-type attack in the rain.
Yeah, but there is a chance Groudon switching into some pretty powerful moves here. Maybe
Hyper Voice.
Maybe a Hyper Voice and an Ice Beam, maybe something like a Draco Meteor. So it is risky bringing in Groudon here.
And we see Thundurus now go for the Thunder Wave, going to target down that Salamence, going to paralyze it, going to slow it down, going to give it a chance to be fully paralyzed. Now Salamence does go for a Hyper Voice here. Thundurus not going to care too much, but Groudon going to get hit for about 40%. Big damage as Kyogre does go for an Ice Beam right now. Going to go ahead and hit that Thundurus, going to do a good amount of damage to it. Thundurus cannot hang on, but I think the damage has been done. I think, you know, paralyzing Salamence
paralyzing
is a good trade.
Salamence is a really good trade, but at the same time you lose your Thundurus and you haven't paralyzed any Kyogre or anything yet, so certainly a fair trade. Salamence, the question is though, Salamence, if it has Draco Meteor and the other Salamence doesn't, then even if it's paralyzed, it's still favorable in this matchup.
Right, and you know, that's a move that a lot of players do steer away from. They actually prefer the Tailwind support, but some players do opt for the ability to kind of trade Salamences in that fashion.
Yeah, and that's something we'll definitely have to keep an eye on, though at the same time, Kyogre with Ice Beam does already threaten the Salamence, so you have to imagine Jake Salamence, he's not going to want to let it faint for nothing in return, so he's definitely going to be playing cautiously when it comes to his own Salamence, but at the same time, his Groudon already, you know, barely over half, so if Grant predicts Jake's Salamence to either protect or switch right back out, he can just target this Groudon and get a whole lot of damage done to it.
And Kyogre's going to switch out on Grant's side, going to want to preserve that weather, going to want to preserve that rain for later on. And we do see Bronzong switch in right here. Not sure if it's going to be Levitate or Heat Proof. We've actually seen a lot of Heat Proof lately.
Yep, we've seen a lot of both kinds of Bronzong. And as we saw on the PGL, it's pretty much split 50-50 whether it's Levitate or Heat Proof.
And the opposing Salamence on Jake's side does go for a Tailwind here, going to be able to set up his team. Not really caring too much about speeds, as Groudon on Jake's side goes for a Swords Dance, trying to set up here. But what is this Salamence going to do on Grant's side? Grant's Salamence goes for a Draco Meteor, going to connect onto that Salamence. Huge connection right there, as it should be able to pick up the one-hit KO Oh boy, you were saying it before, Dracomir turns the tide of the Salamence matchups.
Yeah, and this is big too, because despite the Swords Dance, if a Kyogre comes in on the switch, a Bronzong could set up Trick Room if it's got Levitate, and Groudon won't be able to touch it. And what's also nice, well, Jake's sending in his own Kyogre, so there's no threat of Fire Punch here on this Bronzong anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. We do see Kyogre switch in, gonna bring the Primordial Sea, gonna bring the Heavy Rain. So,
and Trick Room will certainly help this paralyzed Salamence. However, since we're joining in Game 3, we don't know how these Primals are all trained. So Grant's Groudon, we don't know how that matches up against Jake's Groudon or his Kyogre when it comes to speed. But these players certainly do, having already played 2 matches against each other.
yeah, and oh boy. You know, Trick Room can easily come up. What do you do about that, right? Salamence is paralyzed. At first we thought it would be something that kind of weakens Salamence, but now it's not that bad.
No, in fact, if Trick Room gets up, it's actually pretty good that it's paralyzed, since it's normally so fast, but Double Edge would do a lot of damage to Kyogre if he's able to get Trick Room up and then not be fully paralyzed.
And now Salamence does protect itself here. Bronzong's probably going to try to get up the Trick Room. Groudon goes for a Fire Punch, fizzles out in the Heavy Rain as Kyogre goes for an Ice Beam into that Salamence protect. Bronzong going to go ahead and Trick Room. Oh boy, that's unfortunate to see.
Yeah, probably trying for a hard read there, maybe expecting a Groudon to switch in to turn off that rain. So Jake clearly trying to predict something there rather than just forgetting about the rain.
Also, we know its moveset in Swords Dance, probably ground type attack, probably protect. Probably had nothing else to do that
It had
turn.
nothing else to do, because whether it uses a ground move or a fire move, it won't hit either of these Pokemon. So he had to predict what would happen, and he decided to go for the Fire Punch.
Maybe just hope that something happens.
Exactly, and it didn't quite work, but it was pretty much his only choice that turn.
Right. One of the downsides of having Swords Dance is that you don't have a second coverage move. We see the Gyro Ball now connect onto that Kyogre, going to do a little bit of chip damage as Salamence paralyzed cannot move.
That was likely a double edge targeted into that Kyogre
Absolutely.
slot.
As Kyogre goes for the Ice Beam right now, going to go ahead and hit that Salamence. Going to be able to pick up the KO, but Groudon's still not going to be able to do anything. Maybe set up another Swords Dance. We do see Groudon go for a Precipice Blade. It's going to go ahead and show Bronzong the Levitate instead. Maybe, do you think Jake was actually relying on Salamence to knock out his own Kyogre?
I don't think it could have
anyways.
knocked that out at that since it had full HP, but he was probably just hoping for a switch, that was all.
And we do see Kyogre now from Grant come in, going to try to keep the rain up regardless of what happens. And
it'll be really interesting to see how this Kyogre compares to Groudon in speed, because if Kyogre is able to go first in Trick Room with a water type attack, it can knock out Groudon. On the other hand, if Groudon goes first with its Swords Dance Precipice Blades, there is a chance it knocks out Kyogre, but we see the skill swap.
Okay, all right, going to protect it from Precipice Blades as Kyogre on Grant's side goes for an Origin Pulse now, going to connect onto Jake's Kyogre, going to do a little bit of damage right there because of all that special bulk. And Kyogre from Jake's side goes for the Thunder, the move that might make the difference in this matchup. Connects onto that Primal Kyogre and does 50% as Groudon's Tailwind peters out.
All right, so now this is where that speed matchup is going to come into effect now that Tailwind's done. Trick Room is still up, so this will be really interesting to see. However, that Thunder taking out Kyogre's HP by over half. Looks like the Groudon does not go for a double protect, so Jake must be confident that it's faster in Trick Room.
Oh, Kyogre goes first, goes for the Thunder, connects onto Grant's. That is going to be the KO right there, and now Groudon actually gets to be able to... No, sorry, there's still one more Kyogre on the field for Heavy Rain.
Yeah.
No, wait, sorry.
But it
Bronzong
doesn't have Levitate anymore.
That's right. So it does go for the Precipice Blades onto the Bronzong after the Swords Dance.
Single
does
target
pick up
damage, and the
huge
Swords
damage.
Dance, easy
Huge
KO.
damage. Man, you see how confusing it can get with all the skill swapping and things?
Oh yeah, and this is why speed is so important. That Jake's Kyogre moving before Grant's, we don't know if it was a speed tie or not, but that Thunder knocking out the Kyogre before it can knock out Jake's Groudon, huge.
And we do see Groudon come in for Grant's side. The last Pokemon standing on Grant's side now. Is it going to be able to make this comeback? It does get the Sunlight up, which is what Groudon preferred to face off in, but at the same time, it is a heavily damaged Groudon.
It just needs to move before Jake's Groudon and knock it out with a Precipice Blades. Kyogre won't be able to take it out, so it's all up to Grant's Groudon. How fast is it compared to Jake's Groudon?
And Groudon now on Jake's side goes for the Protect as... Grant's Groudon goes for the Protect as Kyogre goes for Protect as well. And the Trick Room Dimensions expire, and this is it right here. This is it.
It all comes down to this. Whose Groudon is faster?
And Groudon on Jake's side gonna protect itself right here. Probably just going to see if he can get off one more Ice Beam with that Kyogre. Groudon on Grant's side goes for the press position. Kyogre avoids it, and Kyogre gets another Ice Beam off. Gonna hit that Groudon, gonna do a good amount of damage, almost 50% right there.
That's really big because another Ice Beam, if it gets a critical hit, it could knock it out. Or if another Precipice Blades can miss the Kyogre, this is really interesting.
Precipice Blades on Grant's side goes, connects on both Pokemon. Kyogre hangs on. Groudon gets knocked out. Is Kyogre going to be able to pick up the KO with an Ice Beam here? Going to be big. Kyogre goes for the Ice Beam.
It's going to need a crit.
What's going to happen? Is it going to be enough? Grant's Groudon hangs on, and now the Fire Punch should be able to do it. Groudon from Grant going for the Fire Punch, picks up the KO on Kyogre, and Grant Weldon moves on to the top 8.